Here we go. We should be live in about 20 seconds. And it is on a 20-second delay. All right. Well, Emma, I'm going to let you get started. Introduce yourself, talk a bit about your tradition, today's topic. And we are live and streaming on YouTube, and I will continue to monitor for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share our traditions. Let's see here. Okay. And can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Everyone else is muted, so if you can answer in the chat, that would be great.
Okay. Not see me. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Okay, it says that it's disabled. The screen sharing is disabled. Is that what we need to? Oh, there we go. How about that? Is that better? Okay. Well, hello. My name is Emma, and I am the seeress for the 5th house of Monsu in the ancient house of Bury. Our group is a local group here in Tacoma, Washington, but we have been known to travel on occasion all up and down Western Washington, and occasionally on the other side of the mountains too. So it's great to be here, and I want to say thank you to first and foremost the gods for providing this stage in which we get to greet and meet everyone, and also to everyone on the board of Puget Sound Pagan Pride for giving us this wonderful venue to be able to reach out to everyone. In such times that we're having here in Western Washington, there has been a lot, both locally and abroad, occurring in modern society. First and foremost, what we practice is of what most people call the Norse faith. For us, it's a little different. We have a little different look on it. For us, it is just our life. Our life is filled with spiritual teachings, everything. We also believe very adamantly that all of our lives are combined into the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. To separate out one of those things is to lose part of yourself in a manner of speaking. So it's really about combining and sustaining all three of those for the greater good, not just the good of the individual. So it is an ancient tradition. It's not just an old tradition, it's an ancient tradition. Our teachers here in America hail from Norway, the indigenous people of Norway. And we are learning and growing in the very traditional aspects of those teachings. These date back over 13,000 years. So this is definitely not a new tradition, but it has been along for a good long while. And feel free, if you do have any questions, please just put it in the chat, and I'll try and take a look at those and make sure to address those as I can. Let's see. What else can I tell you about us? So we are very much a tribal people, relying very heavily, not on the individual, but on the community as a whole. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about today, given modern society, was some of the misinterpretations and maybe address some of the misinformation that has been out there for a while. So go big or go home, right? First thing we're going to discuss is race. You do not have to be of a particular race. I've seen several memes going about, Woden or Odin or Othin. He who has many names, we'll say, is the All-Father. He's not the Some-Father. Nor is he the Supreme Creator. Our Supreme Creator created all things. All things. So from our perspective and our beliefs, I would not look at somebody from another race, sexual orientation, or anything else to see their differences. The one exception being what those differences bring into the community. Each individual is given many gifts by our creators with which to contribute to their community for the greater good, for the greater prosperity. The House of Monsu is an ancient, tribal, indigenous people. And they were the leaders, the healers, and the spiritual advisors for all of the tribes. And so I am extremely grateful to be able to sit before you today and be able to share this information to you, which has been misinterpreted and used for the destruction of many things, and has caused a lot of mischief and grief among our people and many other people. Let's see, I have a question here. Are you speaking of just the Sami and other tribes versus the people who lived in Norway? Once upon a time in a land far, far away from us, okay? That's how all great sagas or stories begin, right? The indigenous people of Norway. So in modern terms, we're talking not just Proto-Germanic or any of those kinds of things. We're talking the indigenous tribes, okay? Which does include most definitely the Sami people. My grandmother, who is dear to my heart, is a Lothbrok. So there you have it there. So that's another topic that I'd like to discuss and get into, is kind of the Hollywood or modern day take on things versus what it actually was. Lothbrok. For anybody, so the question is a what? She is, let's see, she did her, oh God, I can't even think of what the name of the genealogy, the DNA test. And she was over 90% original indigenous people of Norway. So her family lines go back over 50 generations, and they, provided there weren't extenuating circumstances such as a warrior's death or, you know, something along those lines, an illness or a sickness, they lived to be over 100 years. So you figure you go back quite a ways that way. There is a lot of family history. Probably you're only going to get a brief version of things in 45 minutes. So bear with me on that. Anybody who's seen the Vikings TV show knows who Lothbrok is, okay? Although that was a show based upon not necessarily chronological historical events, very loosely based in history. So my ancestors are among the people who have never, ever lost tradition, who have always worshipped the old gods, who have always kept those rites and sacred ceremonies. And we here, although we are not always in the public eye, we are not of the more recruitment side of things, we definitely do welcome everyone. It does not matter if you feel called to this path, if the gods have called to you. We would welcome you with open arms. Now, of course, that being said, this is not an easy path. If it was, everybody'd be doing it, right? It is very traditional. As I said, our life includes our spirituality. They are not separated. So this is not a part-time gig, okay? It's not a once-a-week gig. We very much are based on our gods first and foremost, our people, our tribe, our family. For example, all of our Creator's children are my brothers and sisters. They're my sons and my daughters. My elders are my grandparents. There is another quote that was made somewhat famous by another movie called 13th Warrior. And I've seen it on prayer flags and whatnot, and it actually is a very sacred prayer to us that has been used and appropriated. And that is, lo there do I see my father, lo there do I see my mother, and it goes on. The reason for this is it is a way of calling to our gods and saying, I see you, and I want you to see me. Our people are about healing each other. And when I say our people, that includes everyone, but most especially the House of Monsu. We are the healers. We are the ones to reach out and help heal our people and the land, because the land to us is also something super sacred. It is our mother. And there are many ceremonies and traditions that involve our gods, most especially our creators. The House of Monsu, there were many houses that venerated or honored or worshipped certain gods or goddesses for different reasons. The House of Monsu does not pick and choose. We recognize them all. Here in Tacoma, The South Puget Sound, we love hearing and learning about other people's paths and traditions. And we afford them the same respect that we have and expect. What that means is, for example, I would not walk into someone else's church and start screaming at the top of my lungs, "Hail Odin." That would be disrespectful. So we do not expect that to happen to us either. Our path can be extremely hard, and there can be suffering, because our gods never promised that there wouldn't be suffering. That's usually a hard one for a lot of people. That usually makes people run screaming and hollering and run away. But there is a lot of joy. There is a lot of family, a lot of cooperation. Many hands make light work, right? We build with intent to help our people now and for future generations to come. Our Supreme Creator has commanded us, has asked us to do this. And what we see going on, especially abroad right now, is a lot of hate mongering. And misappropriation of our traditions, our symbols, and even the names of our gods. And a lot of tears have been shed over this. It is not approved. It is not our way. It never has been, and it never will be. Our gods created each and every single one of us. And for us to not see our gods in the eyes of those faces we look upon, that is the hardship. That is the sorrow and the struggle. How can you do that? Many have done that. And so our job is to remind each other of that compassion and that strength and all of those gifts that we have been given by our gods to do what is best for the greatest good. And I'm here to tell you that no one person has that authority unto themselves. No one person. The gods, we kind of joke about, in our tradition, there are over 613 laws that we have to follow, that we do follow. A lot of our traditions are kept out of books, out of the public eye, so that they are kept sacred and they are not devalued, given what little information is out there and how it has been misused and misinterpreted. I'm sure everyone can understand why it would be important. So if you're looking for a teacher on the runes, If you're looking for a teacher on the sacred teachings, I would suggest you do what we did. Go to the gods and ask them for source material. Now, understand, I am not here to shake my finger at anyone. Everyone has the right to seek out information as they see fit. But for us, some of the problems that we encounter is people who come to us and say, well, I need a book reference. So my question is always back to them. What did your people do before there was writing? How were they taught before there were books? Our tradition is an oral tradition. It always has been. It is kept that way for a reason because, again, we don't separate knowledge and wisdom. And what is the difference? You can get knowledge from a book. You cannot experience it from a book. So for us, it is life, absolutely, to have the wisdom and the knowledge melded, married in sacred teachings together. So it's a little different. That's not to say that anyone who's ever published a book or written a book is wrong. I'm not here to judge that. I'm telling you that that's only part of the story, part of the saga. The other problem that we oftentimes come up against is interpretation. For example, if somebody were to go to a cemetery and dig up somebody's grave, and nobody else was able to tell them who and what that person was, they're going based upon the information that they have right there, only the physical evidence, but it's not their whole story. So overall, what I'm saying is, although they may have a sliver of truth, do not forget that it is just a sliver of truth. Keep seeking. There's nothing wrong with wandering. Our gods did that many times for many reasons. There's no shame in that. No mistruth in that. Our sagas for us were reality. They're not stories. They're not mythos. They're not legend. They are real. They tell about the struggle of people, of beings, whether you want to call them gods, or you want to call them giants, or you want to call them dwarves, or whatever. They are about the adventures, struggles, victories, triumphs, and tragedies of people. And they are lessons for us left for their future, for their generations, to breathe life into us, so that we may know, one, that we're not alone, and two, it's been done before. Most of the time, that doesn't stop us from trying it anyway. The school of hard knocks. We are more than the Vikings that you see on TV that raided and plundered everything. We are so much more than that. We were farmers. We were a very deeply spiritual people. Vikings or Viking was something you did. It was like walking around and calling everybody a mail carrier. We had fishermen, we had Vikings, and we had Vikings of all sizes, genders, and races. Do we have any questions or any comments? I have a tendency to go off on tangents, and so I'm trying not to do that.
Emma, thanks so much for sharing so much of your heart and history. There is so much going on. What's been, and I'd be curious to hear about others' practice with their ancestors and how it relates to your tradition, because we've had this as a recurring theme through so many of the presentations that it might be a good and interesting discussion.
Okay, is there something in particular or just kind of in general?
I'd add to the group, and if the group is fine, I'll unmute everybody so we could have a group chat.
Oh, good, I'd love that.
So you all now can unmute if you like, and have a free-form discussion with Emma. I have no ancestors. I'm an orphan, so I'm.
Oh, that's okay. We'll claim you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
My name's Katrina, by the way.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi. So I was just curious on like working with the gods and goddesses from the Norse traditions. Like, how does one go about doing that if they're not part of those traditions, or is that even acceptable? Like, not wanting to step on, toes and like appropriate culture and things like that.
So let me preface this by saying, yes, our people did do raids and the such. Okay, that's not all that we are, but they did do that. They did conquer other peoples, other tribes, and other tribes and stuff had their go at us too. That was kind of the time back then, right? So it's important to understand that when we went and let's say we conquered another tribe, for example, we did not replace their culture. We did not replace their beliefs. We would sit down, our council of elders, for example, would sit down with these people and they would talk about the similarities. So how does one go about it? For me, you just do it, right? You start, even in the hovel or the hovemal as we know it, there is a stanza, and I am so bad at memorizing which stanza is which, so I apologize for that. But it talks about go off into your friend's house, right? Weeds don't grow on a worn path, right? So it's the same way with our gods. For us, it is life, which means it is every single day. For example, and I do understand that it is kind of an extreme example, but it's also an obvious one, and that's why I'm going to use it. My eyes open, and there are traditional songs that are automatically entering into my head. There are ceremonies I do as soon as my feet touch the floor beside my bed. So it's every day in every aspect of the mundane as well as like high ceremony. So I hope this is answering and kind of giving you a little bit of insight. You just do it. You speak to them. Hear me, my creator. And if you want, you can use one of the names that we know, Freya, Woden, Thor, Tyr, whoever it is that you feel called to. It's been my experience, and I'm not saying that it's ultimately limited to that, but most women, those of the female nation, tend to go through Freya. That is by design. That's not saying that it has to be exclusively Freya. I've known many women who have built a working relationship with Skadi, for example, or Hela. So there are many options out there. But first you would go about it by just speaking to them. When I first started and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, I will be the first to admit it. I talked to them just like I would a family member, you know. So, Mother Freya, I need your help. I need your clarity. I need your presence here with me now. And I would talk to her just like you would a mother. You know, most of the time we find that when we're talking to our mothers, it's, Mom, I got a boo-boo. I need to be patched up. I need some comfort. I need some clarity. And of course, there is that strength that comes from it as well. For the men, it's usually Thor or Tyr or Woden. And also another interesting thing is we did not believe that there was only male and female nation. Okay, all peoples were welcome. So let me nip that in the butt. Did that help to answer your question there, Katrina?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess my thing, I came from a very Christian background and I'm very new to all this. And so I guess part of my brain is still kind of stuck in that, oh, I have to do everything like right or a certain way. So just doing it is, you know, what you said, just getting into it is sometimes hard because I don't want to like step on toes.
So I would offer this since you offered that about yourself, and I do appreciate you sharing that with us. Absolutely. A lot of us here, especially in the US, do come from a Christian background of various sorts. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not so in a box, and I don't mean that in an offensive way. I apologize. But it's not so in a box with a written handbook of instructions, you do this and that, right? One of the things that is probably going to help you the most, and I've even come from a Christian background as well. One of the things that helps the most is to first work on doing the work. Our gods, in the comparison of Christianity versus what we follow, there is definite work involved. You get what you earn, okay? With our gods, for example, Woden, the All-Father, he had to earn the wisdom that he got. He had to earn the runes. And so our gods believe very much in the balance of things. So that's also the part of reading something in a book versus having the actual life experience. And so that's one of the major differences is anybody can have book knowledge. There's a difference between life experience and book knowledge. And when you do the actual work, for example, if I were to try and reach out to Freya, I would make it as sacred as possible in the ways that speak to you until you know better or you know different. There's no wrong way because our gods want that connection. They view us as their children, right? So, because we are their creations. And there's a whole great big long saga and story about that, which I can't get into too much. But we are their creations. And so they have a great love for us. If you've ever done any kind of arts and crafts, you take pride in what it is that you created. You want it to be the best that it possibly can be, right? They're no different, no different. Because we have part of them in us, because we are an extension of them, that connection is always and already there. And so what is most important to them is this right here. That's your heart.
Did you get yourself some coffee?
What's that?
Did you get yourself some coffee after you made it?
Would you like some?
Yeah.
Okay, probably get you some. If you like.
So that is the most important thing, is the heart of your mind, because this is where your emotions are. This pumps blood. This is where your emotions are. And so as long as you're doing it with an open and sincere heart and you're communicating to them. And the other thing that I would encourage everyone to do is to speak with them on a daily basis, not just when you need something. Kind of like if you had a friendship with somebody and you only wanted to talk to them when you wanted something from them, their help or to borrow a cup of sugar, and that's the only time that you talk to them. How strong is that bond? How great is that communication? It's kind of the same deal there. Did that answer it a little better?
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
Is your practice hard pantheist or soft pantheist?
Mine? Yours.
That's that's a tricky one. So our gods have many names. For example, Woden had over 500 names. He was known to many people as many different names. We do kind of, and this is maybe oversimplifying it, but if I were to go into the kitchen and cook up a meal and then bring it out and serve it to someone who had never been here before, they would know me as a good cook or a bad cook, depending on what it was. and they wouldn't know anything else about me, right? So our gods were much the same way. If Woden went on one of his wanderings, on one of his adventures, and did a particular thing in a town, they know him as that until they see something else, right? So our gods are not just aspects. So it is hard in some regard, but it is soft in others. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. There are very
Hopefully
few
it made a little
hard
bit of sense.
answers.
This is also, just real quickly as it pops into my head, this is also one of the reasons why there are so many names for what social standing you had, we'll say, for lack of better terms. For what it is that I do, they were known as Specona, Seedcona, a CRS, Scyther, a Vulva, all these different names, right? But it was one aspect of what they did, just like Viking or Viking. And for clarity, Viking people were the ones that stayed home when people went on raids. The Viking is the ones that went out on the long ships and the boats. Both spelled the same way. But I do thank you guys for your questions. And if you do have any more, I will answer absolutely anything that I possibly can for you.
Yeah, I have another question. I was giving space to see if anybody else had any other questions, but I probably have a million questions. But yeah, you mentioned some of the goddesses, and you mentioned specifically, sorry if I say her name wrong, but Skadi.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting that you mentioned her, because she's one that I've been kind of like looking into, and like I would, if you have any information on her, I would be welcome to hear that.
So I use this term very loosely. What is like common knowledge, or what is known about Skadi, is that one interesting fact about her, she chose her husband by his feet, right? I think that's one of the more public and well-known stories. So there was a reason why she was given the option to choose among all the Aesir gods a husband. But she also only could choose him by his feet, right? So picture this in your mind. All the guys lined up and they got to remove their boots. Now they've been out, you know, doing whatever they do, hunting and fighting. And okay, so she picks her husband by his feet. I gotta say, all I can keep picturing is maybe some of them didn't smell, maybe smelled a little too ripe. You know, things like this. But ultimately what ended up happening is she wanted to claim Boldar, okay? The bright sun. And there are many reasons, much background to him as well. All of them have very rich, full stories and backgrounds. Anyway, with Skadi, she wanted Boldar as her husband because he was the most handsome. He was the bright and shining one, right? He was the good guy. And so she chose the prettiest feet. Well, they did not belong to Boldar, but instead belonged to Njord, god of the ocean, god of the seas. And so Skadi, being a giantess and lady of the mountains and of snow and skiing and things of this nature, it wasn't exactly a match made in heaven, as they say, right? Because Njord wanted to be in his home, in his great hall at the bottom of the ocean, okay? And Skadi, well, she had her own in the mountains, in the snow, where food was plentiful. And pretty soon she went to go stay with Njord, and it was too loud and too noisy for her, with all the dolphins and the whales and the fish and all the sea life. She wasn't used to that. And so she said, she talked to him and she said, you know what? I'm going to go spend some time. I can't do this. I can't be here. And he did the same for her, but they had this similar problem. Neither one was willing to give up what they had but they couldn't really feel at home and at ease in the other's area. And so they agreed to part ways. And that's just a rough outline of one of the stories of Scotty. But she was a giantess, and her father was killed. That's about all I can say about that. But in another time, if you want to get in touch with me, I would be more than happy to help you however I can with Scotty. I don't have a problem doing that. She is a fantastic giantess. I've enjoyed her a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Could you share your email in the chat so I could get in touch with you?
Absolutely, I can do that. Let me do this.
While you're doing that, does your group have a Facebook page or a website?
Yes. We do have a Facebook page, and I'll put that in chat as well because it's kind of, it's spelled weird, right? It has the Icelandic letters on it.
Yeah, but they should be able to find it normally.
You should be able to find it. Okay, well, I'll put the spelling in English, and my husband Larry says that you should be able to find it on Facebook. We do, for example, our group does a Facebook video every other Saturday, and today's that day as well, for Havamal study, and they go through the stanzas and they talk about each one. So it's really good to kind of get all those interpretations and they'll sit and have a little bit of discussion over it and see what comes of it. And so they do appreciate and love to have interaction. If anybody has questions, that's a good time to ask them about it as well. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate that. He's on the ball. So.
Well, wonderful. We are wrapping up on our time.
Okay.
We have one more session after this, and I'm going to drop another set of links in there. The rest of today's schedule, of course, we have a full day tomorrow of more amazing presenters, including Phyllis Carrott, Byron Ballard, Diana Saxon, Ed Hubbard, more crafts. And thank you so much, Emma, for sharing so much of your heart and traditions with us. This has been wonderful. And then my final ask and plea to all of you is please go out and make your intentions known and vote. All pagans vote.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll leave it for any final questions for Emma, and then I'll wrap us up.
Okay, thank you so much. And yes, please do get out there and vote.
I think it is a profoundly spiritual act. It is using our powers to change our world and our intent to change our world.
Yes, even going back to tribal times with our ancestors, you would sit in what is known as a council with our elders, and you would make your voice known. You would contribute in that way to the wellness and welfare of your people. So it is absolutely imperative that you get out there and make your voice heard.
All right, well, I'll give you back all a few minutes before our next session, and I look forward to seeing you all again later. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you very soon live and in person. Take care.
Thank you. You as well.